What if I told you some people who look rich are actually one emergency away for financial collapse? They wear expensive clothes, drive luxury cars, post first-class flights online, but behind the scenes, they're stressed, trapped, constantly trying to keep up an image they can barely afford. And then there's another type of person, the quiet one. No loud flexing, no obsession with attention, no need to prove anything. But every month, their investments grow, their savings expand, their freedom increases. One person feels rich, the other person is rich. And today, we're going to break down the dangerous difference between the two. Because most people spend their entire lives chasing the appearance of wealth while secretly moving further away from real financial freedom. And the scary part, modern culture rewards the illusion. People admire visible success. Nobody notices invisible discipline. But by the end of this video, you'll understand why trying to look wealthy can quietly destroy your future, and why many truly wealthy people intentionally avoid looking rich at all. Point 1. Why feeling rich is so addictive. Here's the truth most people never realize. Feeling rich gives instant emotional rewards. Being rich usually requires delayed gratification. And human psychology naturally prefers instant pleasure. That's why someone making $4,000 a month buys a car they can barely afford. That's why people finance luxury items to impress strangers. That's why a salary increase often leads to more spending instead of more investing. Because spending creates emotion. It creates identity. It creates the temporary feeling of success. But real wealth? Real wealth is usually boring in the beginning. You don't feel rich investing money instead of spending it. You don't feel rich saying no to unnecessary purchases. You don't feel rich living below your means while everyone else appears to be upgrading their lifestyle. And that's why most people lose the financial game emotionally before they ever lose it financially. Imagine two friends, same age, same income. Let's call them Alex and Jordan. Alex earns $5,000 a month and spends nearly all of it maintaining an image. Expensive clothes, car payments, luxury restaurants, weekend trips, social media flexing. People think Alex is successful. Jordan earns the exact same amount, but Jordan lives differently. He saves aggressively, invests consistently, avoids unnecessary debt, learns valuable skills instead of chasing status. Now fast forward 5 years. Alex still looks rich online, but privately he's stressed. One missed paycheck becomes a crisis. His lifestyle owns him. Meanwhile, Jordan now has investments, emergency savings, and maybe even multiple income streams. Alex bought appearances. Jordan bought freedom. And freedom is the highest level of wealth. The dangerous thing about society today is this. It teaches people to perform wealth instead of build it. Luxury is marketed as success. Consumption is celebrated. Patience is ignored. And social media made this problem even worse. Enjoy them. They buy things to be seen enjoying them. That changes financial behavior completely. Now, purchases become emotional signals. People spend money to communicate status, to avoid feeling behind, to look important. And companies understand this perfectly. That's why advertisements rarely sell products anymore. They sell identity. A watch becomes success. A luxury car becomes power. Designer clothes become importance. And once spending becomes emotional instead of practical, financial discipline becomes much harder. That's how people earning good money stay broke for decades. Not because they're lazy, not because they're unintelligent, but because they confuse visible wealth with actual wealth. And those are two completely different things. One is appearance. The other is ownership. One gets attention today. The other creates freedom tomorrow. Here's the part nobody talks about. Looking wealthy is expensive. Not just financially, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Because once your identity depends on appearances, you become trapped maintaining them. Point 2. Lifestyle inflation quietly destroys people. There's a financial trap called lifestyle inflation. This happens when your spending rises every time your income rises. instead of building wealth. Every raise simply creates bigger expenses. And the scary part? It feels normal. Someone gets a higher paying job, then upgrades apartments, upgrades cars, upgrades clothes, upgrades vacations, upgrades restaurants, until eventually they still feel broke, just at a more expensive level. That's why some people making six figures still live paycheck to paycheck, because income alone does not create wealth. The gap between what you earn and what you keep creates wealth. And the bigger your lifestyle becomes, the harder freedom becomes. Because expensive lifestyles create invisible pressure. Pressure to maintain income. Pressure to keep performing success. Pressure to avoid downgrading. That pressure controls people more than they realize. People stay in jobs they hate because their lifestyle became too expensive to escape. They tolerate stress because their bills demand it. They sacrifice peace to maintain appearances. And that's the trap. Now compare that to people quietly building real wealth. Most of them understand one powerful principle. Assets pay you. Appearances cost you. A luxury car usually loses value. Investments can grow value. Expensive status purchases drain cash flow. Businesses and assets create future cash flow. And once you understand this, you begin seeing the world differently. You stop asking, how can I look successful? And start asking, how can I become financially free? That mindset shift changes everything. Because wealthy people often focus on ownership. Ownership of businesses. Ownership of investments. Ownership of time. Ownership of freedom. While people chasing appearances focus on consumption. And uncontrolled consumption creates dependency. The truth is, many people are not buying luxury because they truly love it. They're buying validation, attention, approval, status. And the scary part? That emotional satisfaction fades quickly, which means they need another purchase, then another, then another. That cycle never ends, because external validation is temporary, but financial consequences last for years. That's why some people look successful publicly while secretly struggling privately, because the image became more important than reality. And once image controls your financial decisions, building wealth becomes incredibly difficult. So if real wealth isn't loud, what does it actually look like? Most of the time, it looks invisible. Point 3, the psychology of being rich. Real wealth is usually invisible at first. That's what makes it difficult psychologically, because society rewards visible success more than invisible progress. Nobody applauds disciplined investing. Nobody notices consistent saving. Nobody celebrates delayed gratification. But those invisible habits eventually create visible freedom. And freedom changes everything. A truly wealthy person values control more than attention. Control over time. Control over decisions. Control over opportunities. Control over where and how they live. Because at the highest level, money is really about options. The option to leave toxic environments. The option to take risks. The option to rest. The option to build something meaningful. That's real wealth, not impressing strangers online. Here's something most people don't understand. Many financially successful people intentionally avoid looking rich, not because they can't afford luxury, but because they understand something powerful. Every financial decision has a future consequence. A person who constantly spends to feel successful becomes emotionally dependent on spending. But a disciplined person develops long-term power. And discipline compounds far beyond money. It affects confidence, patience, decision-making, self-control, long-term thinking. That's why wealth building is deeply psychological. It's not just math, it's behavior. You can give two people the exact same income, and one builds wealth while the other stays trapped forever. Because income matters less than habits repeated over time. Saving consistently, investing consistently, avoiding unnecessary debt, learning valuable skills, delaying gratification. These actions seem small daily, but over years, they completely separate lives. And this is where most people misunderstand wealth. They think wealth begins with luxury, but most real wealth begins with restraint, with discipline, with saying no repeatedly, with resisting social pressure, with understanding that looking rich and becoming rich are often opposite paths in the beginning. Because when you build wealth, your money becomes workers. Every dollar invested becomes something capable of producing more money later. But when all your money goes toward appearances, your future loses resources. That's why financial freedom requires sacrifice early. Not forever, just long enough for momentum to build. And once momentum builds, everything changes. Eventually your assets begin working harder than you do. That's when stress decreases. That's when options expand. That's when money stops controlling your life. And ironically, that's often when people finally become capable of affording the lifestyle they once tried to fake. At some point, everyone makes a choice. Spend money to impress people now, or build quietly until your future becomes powerful. And that choice repeats every day. Every purchase, every financial decision, every temptation. You either feed appearances, or you feed freedom. Because the truth is, most people don't actually want luxury. They want security, peace, freedom, control over their lives. Luxury simply looks like the shortcut, but often it becomes the obstacle instead. Imagine two futures. In one future, you look successful online, but privately feel trapped financially. In the other future, your progress is invisible at first, but years later, your life belongs to you. No panic over bills. No constant financial stress. No pretending. Just stability. Freedom. Peace. That second future is built quietly. And it starts with understanding one powerful truth. Feeling rich is temporary. Being rich is structural. One is emotion. The other is ownership. One fades quickly. The other compounds for decades. So the next time you feel pressure to impress people, ask yourself one question. Am I buying this to build my future or protect my image? Because that one question can save people years of financial pain. If this video changed the way you think about money, subscribe for more psychology of wealth content every week. And comment below, what's one thing society pressures people to buy just to look successful? Remember, the loudest wealth is usually rented, but real wealth moves in silence.